Hello, my name is Dale Adams of Planning Ahead of Time. And on this week's Pat Chat, I'm speaking to Rob Cornfield from My Trusted Wills about the budget and how it affects you. Rob, hi, how are you?
I'm good, thank you, Dale. Yes, thank you. It's good to talk about this subject. Um, I've done a lot of studying since the middle of last week on this, and I'm ready to impart, hopefully, some knowledge over the effects of what the Chancellor announced regarding inheritance tax, etc. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
well, I've had a very brief read up. Knew we were having this chat this morning, and obviously see there have been some significant changes that will create a ripple of effects. So I'm really looking forward to you telling us basically more about it, because again, how is it going to affect people as they come to their end of life, and part of their planning for that?
Yeah, well, it's actually made planning even more imperative than it was previously. Um, the Chancellor announced an extended freeze on the inheritance tax thresholds. That's firstly something that, on the face of it, the public will possibly see as not having any effect on them. But to use a term that's used quite rightly by Martin Lewis, the financial guru, um, that really is what's known as fiscal lag, because assuming the inheritance tax threshold for a married couple currently sits with the nil rate banding, which is something that we all have, whether married, civil partnership or single, that nil rate banding sits at £325,000. And then there's a thing called the residence nil rate banding, which means that if you are leaving your main place of residence to your direct descendants, then you get an additional £175,000, meaning that an individual would have a total of £500,000 as a threshold before inheritance tax. However,
And it's been
everything,
years, hasn't it, from 28 to 24?
from 2028 up to 2030, that freeze is now in place. However, there is a thing called spousal exemption, and that means that there is no limit on how much estate value can be left to either a married spouse or a civil partnership spouse. So that amount can be any amount, whether it be below those thresholds or into the millions. There is no inheritance to pay on first death.
Right.
The inheritance tax comes in on second death. So if we assume that a married couple have an estate at the value of £800,000, obviously on first death, everything passing to the spouse, including the deceased's inheritance tax thresholds, that would sit below the combined thresholds of £1 million. So there would be no inheritance tax on first passing.
Yeah.
On second passing, inheritance tax also wouldn't be charged. But that assumes that the property price doesn't increase between now and 2030.
Yes,
And property prices will increase.
yeah.
So that means that as those property prices increase, more people will fall over that inheritance tax threshold and have to pay inheritance tax of 40% on everything over that £1 million. So it's a very clever move by the Chancellor. She announced that only 6% of estates are liable for inheritance tax at the moment. What that doesn't take into account of is first death within the partners, married partners, civil partners. That helps to lower that percentage. When you look at taking that out of the equation, the actual number or percentage would be closer to around 12 to 13% of estates that fall into inheritance tax at the moment. If we then move that forward to 2030, you're looking at probably 1 in 4
Wow.
estates will trip over the inheritance tax threshold. This is why, just from that side, it's imperative that there is some planning put in place and things are taken care of now, while they can be, to mitigate that inheritance tax liability. And then the other concerning thing is the tax on unused pension pots.
Yes, I see that it's going to be taxed now, isn't it?
It is going to be taxed, yes. And it is critical that anybody with a private pension has a review on it to see what the best way is of taking care of that pension pot to ensure that inheritance tax and income tax isn't claimed. Because when you take into account inheritance tax at 40% and then income tax on just a basic tax level of income tax liability, you're looking at losing in the region of 67%. I say that again, 67% of that pension pot.
Okay.
People have saved hard, they've gone without, they've created these pots so that they can themselves live well in retirement and they can leave significant legacies to their loved ones. It is really, really imperative that the reviews are carried out in light of last week's budget.
Yeah. And there's also been changes for business owners as well, isn't there? If they're passing businesses on into families, which at one point didn't get taxed and is also coming in the budget.
Exactly. Yeah, and they're talking about businesses, they're talking about farms,
Yes.
etc. Okay, the allowances, the £1 million ceiling they're talking about sits outside of the other joint £1 million for inheritance tax. And we are still waiting for the devil in the detail, as it quite often gets referred to, on this to see exactly what that impact will be.
Yeah.
But what I want to say to anyone that watches, listens to this Pat Chat, there are ways of legally mitigating this inheritance tax grab, if you like. And that is what we as a business, what other qualified advisors who specialize in estate planning, financial planning, all of those that are independent, like ourselves. We are estate planners. We're not financial planners. We're not tax advisors, but we can give general advice, and then we can point to individuals, businesses who are specialists who can give other advice and would be regulated to do so.
Yeah. Well, just listening to the brief elements that you've been through now, it really does mean it's so important for people to be thinking about this, thinking ahead, because there's so much money at stake. And sometimes I find this a little frustrating when I'm talking to people for what I do, which is the end of life sort of facilitation, and considering their sort of life death plans, what they might like, what they've got thoughts wise for their families. But people think, well, it costs quite a bit now to actually get those plans in place and think about them. But what it will cost them through their estate and for their family is absolutely huge if they don't spend that, if you like, little bit now. And it may seem a big bit to them if you're talking a few £100, even it's a few £1,000s to get this organised, but it will save them thousands and tens of thousands potentially in the future, won't it?
Absolutely. The cost of having these reviews done and putting something in place is a mere minimal fraction of what the cost would be of doing nothing. To sit and do nothing would be false economy. ultimately, whether the fees are paid now or the tax is paid in the future, it will come out of the estate, either when someone's living or when it's too late to do anything about it. And this is what I'm really urging people today is, you know, my mum, God bless her, told me the 3 saddest words in the English dictionary. And those 3 words are, it's too late.
Yeah.
Please, please, whether you approach us or you have an estate planner, financial advisor, please speak to them now before it becomes too late.
So is there any estate value? So for people who are watching this, obviously you started talking about sort of £800,000 as an estate and how that could roll up over the next 6 years to 2030. What if people have got an estate that's maybe worth 300,000 in total or 500,000 in total? What would you say to them with regards to sort of looking and planning forward? Or planning ahead? I should use the name of the
planning. Absolutely. Well, planning ahead is key. Doesn't matter how large or small an estate value is. As I said, there's the private pensions. There's all kinds of things. Plan now to make sure that your loved ones can receive the maximum that they can. And with careful planning, there are all kinds of other things that can come into the mix. You may want to have the ability for your home to be put on the market as quickly as possible, rather than waiting for probate, which I've seen various times on lead times, if you like, on probate and how long that's taking to get granted. But please be aware that if your house is left unoccupied after you've passed away, and if that's for any period of time, then your executors must put unoccupied house insurance in place. That costs 6 to 7 to 8, I've even seen 10 times standard policy rates. And the house has to be regularly inspected to make sure that there are no leaks, there's no ongoing damage, etc. So that's really important. If you have the relevant advice and things put in place, you can alleviate the need for that. The property can go on the market the day after you've passed away.
I think, as you say, there's so much really that's involved in the estates that people don't think about, and that can save them money and also help their loved ones at a time when they really need, if you like, the support to get through all the legalities and the administration that comes along with a death while they're actually in the process of grieving. So I really, as you know, we're both on the same page with that. That's why we do what we do, is to help people. So anyway, Rob, it's been very lovely to speak with you. Thank you so much for giving the overview of the budget. Can you please give us your contact details so anybody can contact you, because I understand that you do give sort of a free consultation to start so that people can actually get some advice from you to determine whether or not they carry on with your services.
Yeah, we do have a no fee initial meeting policy. Contact details, if someone wishes to email, then I would suggest use the email address info@mytrustedwills, that's all one word with an S at the end of wills.co.uk. Alternatively, telephone numbers, they can contact us on 01926 962 048 or 01869 222 679. And I will give my mobile number, which is 07962 559 240.
It does make me laugh that these days, actually, we know our mobile phone numbers off by heart, and often we need to sort of check on the office numbers because we just don't use them as much. But your website is also mytrustedwills.co.uk, which if anybody wants to have a look at what you do and your contact details are also on there.
They are, yes. The website is in the process of being refreshed with some new information, some different photographs, but the contact details are all on there. So please, if anyone wants to reach out and look for help and advice, we're here, and we would quite happily have initial conversations.
Lovely. I'll also put the contact details at the end of the Pat chat so that people can see them. Thank you very much for your time this morning, Rob.
Thank you. Take care.